Okay, dokie. Hello.
Oh. Hello. Happy Friday.
Happy Friday. Yeah, it's admittedly it's late in the day, even here in California. It's already late afternoon, and so I think a lot of our viewers will probably be offline for the day. But yes, happy Friday and happy Saturday to some people who are joining the call, joining the Zoom from other odd times of the day. I know who I am. I'm Josh. I'm a big fan of Postgres and therefore a big fan of yours. Who are you? Can you explain to the audience?
I'm just a visitor of this live stream. Okay, but my name is Denis. We know each other, I think, for a while, but we know each other for a while. We bumped into each other many times at different Java conferences. But probably that's maybe the first time when we're going to have at least.
I can barely hear you. Okay, say again. You're muted now. Audio and visual issues, friends.
Out now, Josh.
Yes, I can hear you. Can you hear me?
Yeah, for some reason, the software keeps glitching. It says that my mic gets disconnected, but hopefully it's not gonna happen again.
Yeah.
Anyway, how does it let me do this? I will be using one of my remote mic. Just failed.
Okay.
It's been a while because if to finish my introduction, I've been working on a new book about Postgres and for Postgres. The book has quite bold title, Just Use Postgres. Why I started working on this book? Because the previous 8 years I spent working for different database companies full time. And it's inevitable that I spent a bunch of my time working with Postgres, engaged a lot with the Postgres community. And this book is basically my graduation project because I'm a developer. I'm not a DBA. I'm not a kind of. I used to build one of the databases, distributed databases in the past as an engineer, but I don't recognize myself as a database engineer. But I'm just an ordinary developer, application developer, backend developer, who fell in love with Postgres and other databases. And this book is just my graduation exam from the database world. I want to share my knowledge with fellow developers on how to use this beautiful database for various use cases. Okay, now I cannot hear you. Come on, what's happening? Let me check my settings once again. Try to say something. Boom, 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 boom. It's glitching. So you know what? Let me restart my browser. It's just bad. I don't know what's happening. Can you check your settings? Are you muted or not? Because when I go to the settings, I click test, everything works, but I don't hear any audio from you. Come on. MacBook. All right. I heard something when you touched your mic.
Test.
Oh, yeah,
Is that better?
absolutely. Now I can hear you well.
Okay. My machine, my microphone was the goofy one at some point. But was I audible in the beginning when we first started talking?
No, it was all right. I lost you when I just finished my introduction.
Okay, well, computers, the worst things.
Yeah.
Let's see. Here we go. So that was your graduation project, and you culminated your efforts with 8 years of different experience in various databases, working with Postgres and are you? That's interesting. Is that a Polish last name that you've got?
The last name, yeah, the last name is, I don't know actually. I don't know the origins, Magda. What my relatives tell me is, yeah, like from some of the countries like Yugoslavia, Slovenia, from there, from that area. Probably somewhere from Poland, but I'm not Polish. I was born and raised in Russia, and then I moved many years ago to the United States. You live in the East Coast. You live in the West Coast. I live in the East Coast. I'm in Florida right now. So, but yeah, that's my quick.
Okay, well, so somebody pointed that in chat, and I just think that's kind of interesting. Okay, so anyway, we talking about databases. Obviously, a database, like when I first started using databases, it was very much a SQL world, right? And even in the 90s, Oracle and Postgres were still interesting options. Everybody was starting to converge upon MySQL, but at the end of the day, these were just SQL databases. And then I remember sort of like 2005, 2006, 2007, there's this sort of interesting Cambrian explosion of so-called NoSQL databases, not only SQL or no SQL at all databases, and these were often specialized data stores to allow us to work with particular kinds of data with the proviso that were you willing to store your data and work with an API in the way that they ask, the data would be scalable. You could read it at scale, you could write it at scale, or it would be optimized for certain kinds of read modalities. So, for example, Elasticsearch or Redis was constant time read access, right? A distributed map, and you also got certain kinds of write modalities. For example, MongoDB was terse, and it was JSON. You could actually add and remove columns at will because there are people apparently that don't want to know when they read an object what's in the object, right? They hate schema with a passion, and so they build their databases around just surprises. Like everybody likes surprises. I think for birthdays that's fine. For your data, it makes no sense. I don't.
It's better to know. Yeah, it's better to know.
Yeah, I think it's better to know. But yeah, like movies, don't spoil it for me. What's in the contents of my data? Please spoil. I want the schema. I want to know what's going to happen here. But anyway, all that to say, lots of different databases, data stores, data structures out there, and obviously, if you're trying to do like a really professional, Google style full text search engine, you're going to use Elasticsearch. I get it, right? It's a full suite of software that is purpose built for this incredibly hard thing. And maybe if you want caching, that kind of thing, Redis. But I would argue that for a lot of people today, this is my premise. And when I saw your book, I think maybe this is your premise as well. My theory, my thesis is for 80% of the workloads out there, Postgres is enough. And it has good enough support for a lot of these other sort of use cases that you're probably going to be okay just using Postgres. And if you want to do something else, fine. But I would start Postgres first, as opposed to what was that Tokyo Cabinet or whatever it was? What was that NoSQL database from 10 years ago? Tokyo.
I know, man, like how many databases do we have right now on DB Engine's website? I guess if
Oh yeah,
what's
yeah.
the latest data? Let's check it right now. DB Engines. It's hard to remember. I don't even know what you're talking about. This Tokyo. 423 databases right now are ranked on DB Engine's website. So can you imagine that? How many?
Tokyo Cabinet. Yeah, that's what it is.
Okay.
Like, I'm sure it's fine. It's a key value store. I remember that becoming very popular like 10, 12 years ago. Oh, 2009. Yeah, even more than that. But my point is, I would, Postgres was there for 30 years before Tokyo Cabinet came out, and it'll probably be around 30 years after Tokyo Cabinet is no longer used by anybody. I'm not picking on Tokyo Cabinet in particular, though. I'm just saying Postgres has this enduring quality of just being really, really good for a lot of different use cases, and it's gotten that because it's been around for so long, and the community has built all these cool extensions. So when I saw your book is called Just Use Postgres, and it's by Manning, and it's available in early access right now. You can go buy it on manning.com. Let me just put the link here for everybody.
Yeah. Just use Postgres here. Just use Postgres as this title. Those who are not new to Postgres, they know that that's not my invention. This phrase, I don't even know who coined this phrase. Once on Twitter, I raised the question saying, like, guys, we many of us from the Postgres community, from time to time, we use this phrase. Like when someone comes and says, like, hey, what database should I use for this? Let's say use case, like for time series, or I need to do a bit of full text search, and you would say, like, just use Postgres. And my question was, like, who has invented that phrase? And nobody could say. But generally, there were some of the articles. One of the articles was written by someone from AWS. Then there was some other follow-up articles, and in those articles, it was like the first version of the phrase sounded like all you need is Postgres, and then eventually that simplified to this simple short sentence with 3 words, like just use Postgres.
Right.
And the story, like how we selected actually this title for the story, because originally I was not planning to use this title because this title is quite bold.
Right.
It's provocative. It sounds like Postgres is a Swiss Army knife, but in fact, I have a different perspective. We can discuss it a little bit later. But generally, the original title supposed to be PostgreSQL Essentials for Application Developers, something like that. I don't even remember exactly, because my point was that if you take a look, if you check how many books have already been created for Postgres, there are dozens and dozens and dozens.
Yeah.
Excellent books written by
This year even
authors, like a bunch of, but still, I mean, most of the books are written for database administrative tasks by DBAs, for DBAs, so like they spent a lot of their space and pages explaining just relational database concepts and essentials, or they talk about Postgres internals. And I knew that there is one book that still fits this category, and that one is for developers. I just want to introduce Postgres as a toolbox, as your toolkit for you as a developer. How can you use this well-known relational database for relational use cases and beyond relational use cases? So the table of contents, the chapters, etc., were verified and accepted by many.
Yeah.
But then we spent almost a month trying to settle down on the title, because the title, there was kind of several back and forth, because with the title like Postgres Essentials for Application Developers, it was not 100% clear what the focus of this book. It was like, okay, so what the book is about. And some of the folks from Manning were thinking like, no, people who would try to find this book on Amazon or other places, why would they buy it? It's like this title doesn't sound catchy, and it doesn't sound appealing. And eventually, like one day, I jump on another call with Jonathan Genick. He is an acquisition editor who brought me to Manning. And again, we're discussing some other options. And then I'm just sitting silently and thinking, and this phrase, I remember this phrase, like, just use Postgres. And I'm asking, hey, Jonathan, how about this, just use Postgres? He said, like, what are you talking about? I mean, like, just use Postgres, the title for the book. He goes, wow, exceptional. And I told him the story like where this phrase is coming from. And he said, Denis, I believe like we will be able to take this title. And
Yes.
a couple of days, but in a couple of days, he's writing me, yes, yeah, the book is approved. We are sending you a contract. So this was the story. But this is the Just Use Postgres. This is how we came up with the title.
Yeah, I love it. And I love the premise, right? I love the very basic idea, which is that Postgres is, I think of it as actually being a Swiss Army knife. So why don't you say it is?
For me, as you said, actually, you gave a good example of Elastic and Postgres.
Mm-hmm.
Let's say that you need to have some sophisticated full text search engine,
right?
With some advanced capabilities. And what's more important is that you already know how to use Elastic. Elastic is already used in your company. You already have expertise. And generally speaking,
it's very good.
Your team is not that knowledgeable about Postgres, and all your team needs is just to do some full text search over the data that is in Elastic, just use Elastic. But at the same time, the point of this book is to highlight that, okay, many of us know Postgres as a relational database, but Postgres was designed with extensibility.
Yeah.
So that was one of the building principles for this database, Mike Stonebreaker. Yes, when we are going to create something after Ingress database, Postgres was the next one. He said, like, Postgres must be extensible.
Yeah.
And eventually, right now, Postgres has a bunch of extensions and ecosystems. And this is why we're saying, okay, you need some full text search. You already use Postgres. You already know how to use Postgres. Your team, your company already uses Postgres.
Right.
And why would you need to bring another database? Just do this POC. For instance, you need to support this use case for full text search. Do the POC with Postgres because you already have it. If Postgres fully satisfies your needs, just use Postgres.
Right.
If you need something like more that what Postgres provides, then you have a reason to bring another database.
Yeah.
So in my kind of view, that just use Postgres means that first, Postgres is very broad. Postgres has capabilities that go way beyond relational.
Yeah.
And plus, if you need to support some use case, let it be, JSON handling, time series, or generative AI. If you already use Postgres, do a POC. See if Postgres works for you. If it does, then use it. If not, then you have a reason to explore another option. So
okay, we agree. Oh, okay, that's what I meant. I meant like you could probably get what you want to get done with it, but if you need to use Elastic, like I said, it is the best. Yeah. It's the best tool for that particular use case. So if you run into a wall, then sure, use Elastic or use whatever. But I can start 80% of my projects with Postgres, and I'll probably be fine.
Yeah, agree.
And when it comes to constant time lookups, you can do very, very quick queries with the correct use of indexes on Postgres as well. It's not as fast as Redis, but it's fast enough for a lot of cases. You just have all these features that just make it so good. And for me, my first use of Postgres, I used Postgres back in 2002, 2003, when you could not run it on Windows, right? And we didn't have Docker either, and virtual machines were not very common. So I bought a second computer with Linux.
Seriously,
just so I can run Postgres, right?
Wow.
Because Postgres was already. I remember thinking at the time there was this ERP software called Compiere, Compiere.
Okay.
Huge system, and they had only worked with Oracle at the time, and my understanding was that they were they were building out a layer that would actually work with Postgres, and I thought, well, that's a pretty good database if it can support the use cases, including the stored procedures type stuff and the triggers and all that. If I can do most of what Oracle is doing for $0, that's pretty good. So I started learning it, and I was like, wow, this is really, really hard to set up. It was really, really painful. But then once I got it set up and I had a computer that was running it, and I had, I was like, it was okay. It was a workhorse. It was just perfect. And I remember thinking, okay, this is I can do stored procedures in Java and Python and all this stuff. And I'm like, this is different. Other databases don't want you doing this. Postgres makes it easy.
Exactly. And right now you run Postgres in containers. And I remember that attending one of your sessions, That was at Spring One before the acquisition by Broadcom.
Right.
And you were doing that magic on stage. And that day, during that presentation, I learned that you're a bigger fan of Postgres, because literally you were staying on stage and you said, "Hey guys, yes, today I demonstrate you." That was one of your beautiful sprint sessions, and you were just doing that live coding. You also, in the end, you were demoing the first version of Spring AI. And you said, like, yeah, and by the way, like, test containers, kudos to the guys. And what database are we going to use? Certainly Postgres, because this is like my favorite database. And
right.
And then you kind of, this is how I learned that, yeah, this is one of the big fans of Postgres.
Oh, big fan. It's such a good database. I look, if you want to do Google scale, then that's the other thing. You used to work at Yugabyte, right? Like, Yugabyte, like, you can get 95% of the features of any regular Postgres. You can get them at scale with things like Yugabyte and maybe to a lesser extent or a different extent, CockroachDB and others. There are ways to have the most flexible, powerful database engine while also scaling as well. And I think unless you're Google, you're probably
an interesting thing about Postgres, because in the book I'm talking about extensions, official extensions,
right?
That use special extension hooks within the database. And when you start a database, those extensions like I don't know, a pgvector extension for GenAI or Postgres extension for geospatial use cases, they will naturally work with the latest version of the database. But also Postgres became a sort of a protocol, a standard.
Yeah.
Let's take, there are many tools that just implemented that are compatible, like wire protocol level compatible with Postgres. They support Postgres, protocol, the wire protocol.
Right.
And some of the tools created for the Postgres ecosystem can, work with that other application or platform. Yugabyte is another example. Yeah, Yugabyte is a distributed database that is still in Postgres. But what they did, they just took the Postgres source code and they took the upper half of Postgres, like the query engine, the
right.
layer, and they removed the storage layer. They replaced the Postgres storage layer. So this is how you can see how Postgres, drive the innovation, not only within its own ecosystem of extensions, but beyond that ecosystem of extensions. People just using Postgres, at least protocol or Postgres source code, modifying the source code all over the place. It's incredible to see it.
It is so good, and yeah, I'm a big fan. Yugabyte, I'm a big fan of. Obviously, I've done a Spring Tips video on Yugabyte, and because why not? It's the best of both worlds. It's from the same people, and we had Karthik. We had him on the show years ago on the podcast to talk about, he had a background in HBase and Cassandra, right? So you take somebody with that genius and put him or them, these lots of people like him on a database like Postgres. You can do just about anything. Just an amazing technology. So we got a good question here. What's one common misconception people have about PostgreSQL that you hope to clear up in your book, Just Use Postgres? Great question.
The main goal is to show that Postgres is not just a relational database. So first, I have to show that Postgres is first and foremost a relational database.
Very good one.
That's why in the very beginning we still have a chapter on how to use Postgres as a relational database. And I actually, when we released this early access version with many, I've got some feedback from the folks saying that, hey, Denis, like, do we really need this chapter about relational Postgres capabilities? Because everyone knows, like, and my explanation was, folks, I understand that many of us who have relational background don't need this chapter. Probably we will skip this chapter. We will not going to read it unless we want to read the fancy story, because I'm explaining all those capabilities in a nice way. I'm coming up with some real use case, some nice story, and I'm just showing you how to use those features by telling a story. But pretty much that chapter about relational capabilities is for those who have never used Postgres. Many modern developers, let's say, even like right now, I work for a different company, and on my team, nobody use Postgres. They use MongoDB. They use Redis. They don't know, like, they probably have never used relational databases. And if Mongo developers or Redis developers have ever decided to use Postgres, I want them to read the chapter. That chapter is for them. Those who found some courage to study Postgres, they need to understand, the relational capabilities. So that was the first goal. I want people to see that Postgres is still relational, plus it can do more than relational, because the other chapters, they show you how to handle JSON in Postgres, how to use Postgres for full text search queries, how to use Postgres as a message queue. So generally, it will not be possible to cover all the different use cases because there are hundreds of different extensions. But I see some of the main and probably the most widespread use cases that we application developers deal with. So that's the main misconception I want to show, that Postgres is not just a relational database. It's someone from the Postgres community said it's like a data platform. It became a platform. It has the core database engine, and then on top of that engine, we have different, built-in core capabilities and extended capabilities. Right. And I want to show how to use them as a developer.
And I think that's really good. Also, that chapter might be very good for people coming from MySQL as well, because there are subtle differences between MySQL and Postgres' SQL grammars. Simple things like primary keys, auto incrementing primary keys, and the PL SQL versus MySQL's stored procedure language. Wow, what a good book. Okay, so you do talk about SQL. You talk about some very interesting stuff here. This is stuff that I think a lot of people will already understand if they know SQL, and if they've gotten into SQL a fair bit, then they'll understand it. But you have a good discussion here. I'm going through the pages. I bought the book, of course, because I cannot.
Now you can read it, right? But you can read it later once it's ready.
Right, but I'm gonna learn from it now. That way, when it comes out and gets better and better and better, you've got things like you're doing with recursive. You've got common table expressions in here. You've got just window functions. This is definitely not SQL 101. This is SQL 202 kind of stuff, or 201.
Because I tried to find the balance, because what I wanted to avoid, I don't want to spend the section about standard or basic relational capabilities is very condensed.
Yeah,
I explained transactions, joins, stored procedures, and a bunch of other things on 40 pages, just 40 pages.
Yeah.
And my kind of requirement for those who decide to read this book, at least you need to finish some course, like the relational databases course at your college, university. You need to have some basic, because my book is not explaining you what is a create table command or what are the different types. I assume you understand some stuff. If you have that knowledge gap, at least follow the chapter, practice, because if something doesn't make sense to you, just go to ChatGPT or Google and you will figure out what I'm doing. But I don't want to waste your time. I don't want to waste book space, on explaining all those relational capabilities and on a granular level. This is what was exceptionally done by different in different books.
Yeah, I couldn't. Yeah, exactly. And this is also very good, because one of the things I notice a lot of developers might be guilty of, and especially in our Java community, there's a lot of people who are maybe they treat the SQL database as the enemy. They think of it as a complex monster, and so they hide behind object relational mappers. And I think that's a terrible idea. I think you should embrace your SQL engine, because it is super powerful and it can make a lot of the things that you do a lot faster. So I think when you start treating your SQL database as just another place to do CRUD, create, read, update, delete. If it's just another thing that does CRUD, then you have no reason to learn about some of the more powerful query and data manipulation techniques available to you as a Postgres user. So learning about this stuff in this book, I'm big fan, big fan that you got this stuff here. And this is definitely for developers. This is not like how to administer a SQL database. This is stuff that I think a developer should know, should they want to work with the SQL data store.
Yeah, actually, funny story. During when you discuss a book proposal with Manning, and I think that's the case with other big publishers, there is a phase when around like dozen plus people with some expert or practical knowledge in the space of your book need to review your proposal.
Right.
And my book was reviewed by some of the Postgres community members. I know many of them. And one of the questions was, would you buy this book? And many of the reviewers said no. And I know why. Because though they are Postgres experts, they know Postgres
Right.
internals. For them, this book is not necessary. But also, they understood who is the primary user. And generally, but at the same time, those reviewers, those community members, they know that, like one of them told me, Denis, yes, I would not buy it, but I would suggest buy it to my friend developer who wants to read how to use it. So like this book is also for them, for those DBAs, for those Postgres experts. When someone comes to them and asks, like, how can I start learning Postgres as a developer? And they will tell, like, read this book first. Once you understand how to use it, then you can go and read how to optimize it, how to make it highly available, or let's say what mistakes to avoid. Like when you, but first you need to figure out, like, the goal of this book is actually, because we had you have, when you write this book and you have two people are constantly helping you, an editor and a technical editor. And sometimes we have very solid conversations with my technical editor, and she says, like, hey, Denis, probably you need to list pros and cons here, and you need to go deeper on some of the gotchas and some of the kind of corner cases. And I usually say, hold on, no, let me, just not distract them, because my goal is just to show them, I want them to start with Postgres easily. I want them to read the chapter, and I want them to have, that motivation to open up their laptop and start using that. Once they start using, at some point, they will start building the apps. And once they start building the apps, only then they will come across, some problems and issues. They have to come across those problems and issues. And then they will learn from other places how to walk around them and how to optimize. And I like this tactic. I want the book to inspire developers to try Postgres first and then to use it. Once we do this, it will benefit the entire Postgres community. We will have more users, and those users will be learning best practices from someone else. And take a look at this practice, like MongoDB. Actually, that was a big winning strategy for MongoDB, because Mongo is very simple to use, right? No any schema, nothing like that. You just connect your application to a database instance, and here you go. I want this book to show Postgres, as a database that is simple to start with.
It is, yeah.
In that book, let's say in the chapter about relational capabilities, I talk about different database roles and permissions, but I talk this in the end, just explaining the use case, like what are the different scenarios when you want to use them. But I explain this in the very end, when your application is already ready, and when you know how to run transactions, how to do joins and all that stuff. So this is my kind of, I want you to learn Postgres gradually and the easiest and simplest way possible.
I mean, it shows. This book starts. Wow, this book has. You're working through. It looks like you're working through a very interesting example, right? So you've got data. You've already got like a CRM or something like that. I'm not sure what the domain is on this one, but
it's throughout, like every chapter talks, about focuses on one of the different use cases. For instance, in the beginning, we are talking in the very first chapter. You're going to generate some mock data, dummy data for some trading company. Think about, let's say, some investment firm or like some New York Stock Exchange. You're generating data. In one of the chapters, you're going to work on a movie recommendation service. Then you will be creating something for a pizza company. Like you order pizza, you need to track pizza orders. Then what else I had? Different gaming platform. You will be studying probably indexes or something else. So there is a chapter about indexes or some other chapter. We will be using, an example of a global gaming platform where, let's say, people from around the world join this game. But generally, you're not going to build. So this is the story behind this chapter. Let's say that you and I, we work, let's say, for some of the gaming company, and that company created a multiplayer game, and we selected Postgres as a database, and now we need to do something, like we need to support some capabilities, and this is how those capabilities can be enabled by using this or that feature of Postgres. So this is what I do. All the examples, all the code samples are in SQL, because I wanted to create to be this book to be kind of quite generic. So whether you're a Java developer, a Python developer, or
Yeah.
Ruby developer, I want you you will be able to read this book and comprehend it.
Yeah.
Then let's say a Java developer, then read this book. And then, for instance, if you want to figure out how to use Postgres with Spring Data or Hibernate, we have other authors who created specific, tutorials and specific books. But mine is like that, the very beginning.
Yeah, I love it. And by the way, I recommend people use Postgres with Spring Data JDBC or Java OOQ or MyBatis, because they all give you the ability to work with SQL directly if you want to, right? It's very easy to use it, and it doesn't feel like you're not giving anything up. In fact, it's a superpower. I love it. This is great. I don't know when this book will be finished, but you have my money. Okay, you have it. I will. I'm so excited about this book. This is going to be a book I will recommend. I've been using Postgres for 25-ish years, 23 years, and I don't know everything. I don't even know half of everything. But like you said, it's extensible. I have blogs. I remember in 2007 or 6 or something like that, I was using PostGIS. It's always been this way. It's always just been this open toolbox, that solves problems for people, and it's quiet and it just helps. And if you want to use it, great. If you don't, it's fine. You almost never see vendors at conferences with big Postgres, because it's just an open source project. It really is. It's completely decentralized, and yet it's also the number one. That's how good it is. It's the number one database. So I love Postgres, and I love this book. I cannot thank you enough for writing it. I don't know. Where should people go to learn more?
Yes. Speaking about the book schedule, like what's my current plan is that. So right now we have 3 chapters available, and then the plan is to roll out a new chapter on a monthly basis. I'm finishing chapter 6 right now. It will be ready next week. And but overall, we have how many? We have 11 chapters, and then we have 2 quick sections in the appendix. My goal is to finish everything and to hand over the final manuscript to Manning by the end of July, and hopefully sometime in fall, the book will be printed. But it's marathon. It's all about writing a book. And I know that Josh, you also wrote a book, right? Probably like 1 or 2.
7, yeah.
Yeah, you know what it is. It's generally marathon. It's all about your knowledge, passion to learn, because I'm also learning, and also discipline. I have my schedule, and I just push. It's a fight with myself, because you said that you've been using Postgres for the last 20+ years, and you don't know anything. Neither do I. Like a secret that many of these chapters, like even if you take Postgres as time series or Postgres as modern SQL, I knew what I should use, but I have no idea like what to write. And usually, what happens? Let's take modern SQL, which is already published as an example. I know like those common table expressions or recursive functions or what else, but I practice probably a little bit. I've never used, but I'm not the guy who kind of used them extensively for a prolonged period in time. And generally, what I do during the first week when I'm getting ready for the chapter, I'm just locking down myself. I'm consuming information. I'm studying. I'm learning. I'm practicing. Then I'm creating an outline. I'm coming up with use case. I'm writing sample, code samples, etc., etc. And after that, it's like boom, everything is ready. I know how to take all this massive information that was generated by brilliant people. I created my outline. I created use case, and now I'm just explaining those features and stories in my own view, like how I would explain those features to you as a developer. For instance, Postgres technical documentation is probably one of the best sources out there if you want to learn Postgres. But it's quite technical, and sometimes if you are not prepared, it will be hard to navigate. It's very well written for those who already have some average or like senior level experience with Postgres. But generally, for me, this book is also a learning process. I'm learning and I'm sharing, because some of the chapters I've already I've been using those features for a while, for years. Some of the chapters that's my first time experience, but I learn a lot, and then I'm just trying to tell the story in my own way.
Nice. It's super good. I recommend, obviously, if anybody's ever, if you want to learn Postgres, this looks like a good book to get started. If you know basic SQL, I'd recommend it. Manning early access available now. I appreciate you taking the time, obviously, to chat with us today. Where would you want? I mean, first of all, are you on the internet? And if so, do you want to be found? And if so, where can people find you?
Yeah, generally, my name right now, for that you see on the screen, Denis Magda. This is my account name on both Twitter and LinkedIn. I do have, I used to be quite active on those social platforms before I started writing the book, but right now I'm almost disappeared because I'm writing the book during my free time, personal time. It's like usually on weekdays.
Nice.
And then sometime over the weekend, which means that I have a very limited time and I'm just trying to dedicate all this time to the book. So once the book is finished, then I'll be back to Twitter, I'll be back to LinkedIn, and I will be back to conferences, tech talks, live streams. In the meantime, actually, what we discussed with you, Josh, before we started this live stream, this is my very first appearance on live stream for the last 4 months, because once I started working on the book, I just, no more conferences, nothing else until I'm done.
I appreciate it. Well, I'm really honored that you're here. I'm sorry to take you away from working.
No. I wanted to talk to someone because, sometimes you need just to get out of the building, so to say, and talk to someone, especially to you.
Oh man, that's so cool. Just well done. Good job. Well done. This looks like a really, really good book. The community needs this. This book is more, it does AI. You can do JSON, you can do full text, you can do geospatial, you can do documents, you can do it has one of the most sophisticated SQL engines ever. It's scalable if you want. There's scalable distributions. It does time series. It's just an amazing database. And this looks like a great book to help you see some of these amazing, to give you a tour of the mansion of features of Postgres. So thank you, Denis. I appreciate you. And thanks, everybody.
Thanks, everyone. Bye-bye.